Hey mamas, welcome to Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. We share incredible stories, tips, and breastfeeding ideas to help on your journey. I'm your host, Bethany Laverne, a lactation consultant and speech therapist who helps mamas with breastfeeding. Not all breastfeeding stories are the same, and we dive into those topics. Welcome to another episode of Breastfeeding Relief with Bethany. Today I have Amy from Thrive Breastfeeding with us. Welcome, Amy. How are you?
Hello, Bethany. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you today. Why don't you go ahead and tell my audience a little bit about yourself and how many kiddos you have?
Yes, so I am the founder and owner of Thrive Breastfeeding, helping mamas and babies with breastfeeding challenges. And I have three teenagers, 17, 15, and 14.
Ooh, yeah, busy house over there.
Yes.
That's great. So since we are both in the breastfeeding world, I feel like my journey started out of my second son having an awful breastfeeding journey with his tongue tie. Why don't you tell us why you decided to also go into breastfeeding?
So I had my babies back to back to back. I had 3 and 39 months. So was pregnant and breastfeeding for probably a total of 5 years. And I just loved it. I loved that whole babyhood mode. I loved that, the whole motherhood of really young children. But I think that breastfeeding was such a mystery and not something that's talked about so much. And
Yes.
I just really was ignorant going into it and did all my breastfeeding training and certification after I had my 3 babies, but was really just kind of winging it. And I saw that there was a need, especially in the DC area where it's such a transient area and people don't have their extended families around to offer support to moms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So we love the work you're doing. And yes, I agree with that 100%. I do not feel it is talked about enough. I am thankful for TikTok and Instagram showing mamas so many tricks and hacks that I felt not even 5 years ago when I started my first journey. So that's wonderful.
Yes.
So let's jump into more breastfeeding specifics for our new mamas out there. What would you say a healthy milk supply looks like, and when should we start being worried? Because I know all of our first-time moms worry so much.
Yes. And I think it's important to know that most moms make enough milk for their baby. The downside of social media is there's so much information out there that sometimes I think can be very overwhelming to mom. I mean, so many moms will show me these feeds on Instagram where their freezers are just stocked with express breast milk. And that's not necessarily a good thing in the beginning weeks of establishing your supply. So I think it's just so important to have one designated expert to kind of help navigate this whole journey. But in terms of a healthy supply, your baby is gaining well. We want them back up to birth weight about day 14 and then an ounce a day from there. So signs that you may have a low supply is that baby can't go more than an hour in between feedings. Your breasts are squishy all the time. It's normal for them to feel full and then go softer. But if they're in a constant state of feeling like you can feel that you have milk in your breasts. And if you have that sensation where they feel soft pretty much the whole time, that could be signs of a low supply.
Yeah, good advice. A question I feel like I get a lot: should breastfeeding be painful?
So that's probably my biggest crusade. I say that breastfeeding should not hurt. I think that there's a misconception. I was told, a young mother and not having any background on breastfeeding, that your nipples need to get used to it. They need time to toughen up, that it's normal for them to be damaged or cracked or bleeding in the initial weeks. And that is absolutely not the case. So I think that it's really important for moms to be aware that breastfeeding should not hurt if something is going on. It's possibly just a latch and positioning adjustment, or like in your case with your second baby, there could be something anatomically going on where the baby can't put that tongue forward to protect mom's breast nipple specifically from the gum line there. So no, breastfeeding should not hurt. And if you have any pain, it should be addressed immediately and not something that you should just power through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like so many doctors say, it's okay. Right. And even like toughen up your nipples and work through it. Right. That is so not true. And I felt from my first son, specifically being in the hospital, one of the nurses said to me, like, you just forget what it was like. And I was like, no, my kids are 17 and a half months apart. I don't feel like I forgot.
It's fresh.
Yeah, I still remember. And I should not be going, oh gosh, that hurts a lot. Right. And so I was thankful that I had my speech therapy degree and knew that something was wrong. I just had to go find the answer. And so I also say, if you feel you're not being heard and listened to, which I feel like happens a lot, please get a second opinion. Please get a third opinion, right? And mamas, I also want to know if you're having a lot of pain, and like you talked about these cracked nipples, maybe your nipple looks like a tube of lipstick, they could potentially have a tongue tie. And so please go to my website, breastfeedingreliefwithbethany.com, and I have a free download of the signs and symptoms for mom and baby. And if your baby's having, you or your baby are having 3 or more symptoms, please go get your baby checked for a tongue tie. And that release will be so helpful in continuing on your breastfeeding journey.
Great advice. Yes.
Go ahead and tell us, how can we prevent mastitis? I feel a lot of moms don't understand mastitis and seem to get it quite often.
So mastitis, as you know, Bethany, is a breast infection. It's typically caused by milk stasis, or if your milk is sitting there and not on a continuous flow. So someone, the baby or something, your breast pump, should be moving your milk on a continuous basis on every 2.5 to 3 hours. If you are skipping feeds, or if you're unnecessarily pumping, maybe you heard that you should have a freezer stocked by, week 3 or 4, and you start pumping to stockpile, and you unintentionally send yourself into an oversupply. And then that little baby whose demand may be 2 ounces every 3 hours, and you're producing 5 or 6 ounces every 3 hours, then that can lead you to having too much milk to empty, which if milk is sitting there and it's not being drained, then that milk, just like your sinuses, there's any type of fluid that sits there. It's the same thing with your milk ducts. Then you can get mastitis. Some signs to look out for is any flu-like symptoms, a fever, feeling achy, and that's a sign that you could be in that zone.
Yeah. And I've also told moms, I don't know if you do the same, if you have a fever, please don't go to bed and go the whole night without like calling your doctor and letting them know, to either help say like, hey, just take some Tylenol or get on this medication. But I say it's never good to go to bed with a fever like through the night, because it's going to be hard to reach out to medical professionals.
Yeah. I agree. And I would encourage mom to continue to nurse baby on that side.
Yes.
They think there's an infection, that it's not a good idea, but keeping that milk flowing is one of the best remedies that you can do.
Absolutely. So when moms come to you, I know a lot of moms say, how can I get a good pumping schedule in place? Why don't we talk about maybe like pumping from the start, and then our moms as they go back to work?
Yes, so it all really depends on the situation. Moms ask me all the time, when should I start pumping? And the answer is, it depends.
Right.
If you are maybe closer to my age than the average, my client's age, you may want to start pumping with a hospital grade pump right from the get-go. Your body may need an extra little nudge to get that milk to come in and to establish a healthy supply. You may have had a C-section where you've had so many fluids during surgery that we need to, again, incentivize the body to empty out the fluids that you got from your milk ducts to have a place for the milk to come in. So that would be a situation where pumping right from the get-go would be a great idea. Maybe you're separated from your baby, the baby's in the NICU, or you can't bring baby to breast, or baby has a tongue tie and is not emptying you well. So those are all situations where pumping sooner than later is a great idea. In an optimal situation, if mom has milk and baby is nursing well, my recommendation is just to hold off on pumping.
Mhm.
Wait 4 weeks until you get that supply really well established. The latch is going well. You don't unintentionally, like we talked about before, send yourself into making too much for that baby. So, in terms of when to start, it just depends. You also, may have a situation where, oh, yeah, it's probably optimal to wait 4 weeks and then mom is home on night three and it's just unraveling with sleep deprivation, or maybe had a more traumatic birth than the other mom. So then pumping where dad can or partner give a bottle is a great idea. So really when to start pumping is it's a really individualized question. But assuming that mom has milk and baby is latching well, about 4 weeks if you wanted to start introducing a bottle and then pumping. Could be something that you add in once a day. It really is up for, how quickly do you have to return to work? Are you working from home and you have access to the baby so that stockpile isn't as critical? Are you working really long days? I had a mom here working for an agency nearby, and she was butt in chair at 6 a.m. and didn't leave the office until 6 p.m. And that's a very different stockpiling plan than
Mhm.
mom who's maybe, has a nanny there at home, but can take lunch or nurse baby while they're doing emails and work throughout the house. So it really is an individual plan. Again, that's why it's really great to have someone to help you kind of guide what to do, because one plan for one mom is very, very different for another mom.
Right. And I agree so much, Amy. And I bet Amy would say, you can come work with her one-on-one, or you can work with me one-on-one, and we would be
Yes.
more than happy to set up these schedules for you. Look into, helping you with any questions you have. I know I personally run because I felt like I had so many questions and I felt awful asking some of my friends. You don't have access to a lactation provider. So I run that for 30 days. You can ask me any question. One-on-one through an app. I promise I will get back to you in less than 24 hours. It's always going to be quicker than that, right? But you need to also let me sleep.
Yeah.
So, and also different time zones, right? We got to think about our time zones. So, but I want to help you with all your questions so you don't feel like you're bothering mom or your mother-in-law or your friend, and then you're getting 3 different answers if you do ask all 3 of them, and so come to us as professionals and we would love to help you work through those things.
A great resource. And coming to you, you'll get research based information rather than, your mom or cousin or coworker situation that could be completely different from yours. And then you're going down a wrong path.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I know a friend of mine had said, well, my mother-in-law said, put baby cereal into the bottle because he's not sleeping through the night yet. And I'm like, how old is this baby? 2 weeks? No, please don't,
No.
And so why don't we go, yes, with some more education behind us, not what mom said she did.
Yes. In the 80s or 70s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and tell our mamas, maybe what is one thing you wish you would have known as a new mama about breastfeeding nobody had ever told you?
I think the biggest thing is that breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. I think that moms suffer through this being like a miserable, painful experience unnecessarily. I don't think moms realize that, when you are experiencing pain, it inhibits your healing. And don't forget, beyond your breasts and nipple healing, but your entire body needs to heal from your entire pregnancy and delivery, and the recovery can really be inhibited if you're experiencing pain. Pain actually raises your blood pressure and can slow down that healing process. So breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. Breastfeeding shouldn't be this like horrible tax that you have to pay to feed your baby. It can really be something that's pretty awesome. And if breastfeeding is going well, and Bethany, I know you know this, but there's these hormones that are released in oxytocin that really could make it a very stress reducing experience. And it doesn't have to be something that you're freaking out about.
Yeah, I love that. I know I had a friend the other day that her baby is now 12 months old. And she goes, I feel like I should stop breastfeeding, but I just love the oxytocin I get
Right.
every time I breastfeed him. And I was like, you don't have to stop.
Yes.
If you love it and it makes you
Yes.
feel good, then
Yes.
do it. Right? Like we shouldn't be judging each other on how long we breastfeed. And just because you feel you should be done at 12 months, right? Don't feel like you have to, right? And everyone's journey is different. Like with our first son, I stopped nursing at 10 months. I was pregnant with our second son then, and I was super uncomfortable. I didn't feel like I was producing enough milk. He seemed always hungry. He was on solids. And so for me, I wanted our journey to be done because I was getting overwhelmed. And if you're getting overwhelmed, you aren't enjoying it, you aren't happy anymore, you aren't going to be a great mom. So go ahead and give it up, right? But my friend, on the other hand, it's good for her. She's having a good experience. Then keep going, right?
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
wonderful. Plus, it keeps giving them vitamins. And especially, going into, flu season, it's just awesome to have all those extra things.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be so black and white. You don't have to
Right.
100% breastfeed at any point in your journey. I think that it's, very common, especially for us, kind of type A, career-driven women that I come across so much, as I'm sure you do too, to think of like all or nothing. And it doesn't have to be that way. You could take a big picture approach and breastfeed at some of the feedings, and that would be perfectly fine for your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best advice I felt I was given that I also like to give moms is we had talked about that pumping and having your partner give a bottle. And so the best thing I felt for my mental health, having 2 kids under 2, was at night, it was about 7:00. We put our oldest son to bed. I would breastfeed our youngest son, and then I would go to bed and sleep until about midnight. And my husband would give a bottle in between. And that was so good for my mental health because I was getting a huge stretch of sleep. I knew my husband was watching him. They were bonding. And you don't have to feel so bad about taking a break from your child, right? And even I've talked to another mom. She was like, but I'm not pumping any extra milk. And I said, well, then give formula. It is okay to do a formula feed during the day. It is just fine. Like you said, it doesn't have to be black and white, 100% breastfeeding. It's okay to give some formula. There's not an issue with that. Yeah.
Right.
So every person I have come on my podcast, I always say, what is your favorite breastfeeding product you used?
So my favorite breastfeeding product, hands down, is a hospital grade pump. I think that there's a lot of, I'm running across it with so many of my clients that there's just a misunderstanding about what a hospital grade pump is. They're referring to their Spectras or their personal pumps there at home as medical grade, and that's just frankly not the case. If you have a low supply, or if you are separated from your baby, or if you need to go on a very aggressive stockpiling plan, depending on what your situation is, in my opinion and in my experience, there is no other better way to get there than using a Medela Symphony. I think it's fantastic. It doesn't have all the buttons as some of the personal pumps, even compared to, and again, this is my opinion, but the Amida hospital grade pump has the different suction levels and the different, you can go up or down. And I love the Medela Symphony because it just has a dial. And from, supporting thousands of moms for the last 14 years, statistically speaking, mom gets the most milk when pumping with a hospital grade. So does every single mom need one? Absolutely not. But in situations where there, again, is a low supply, or there's a situation where they have a premature baby or separated from baby, I think that if they can get their hands on a hospital grade pump, they're really set up the best for success. I rent them as part of my practice to my clients. Also, our local hospitals rent them as well. So that's something that I'm sure you could help your clients get in touch with, a hospital grade pump, as well as me or whoever your local lactation consultant is.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful advice. Yeah. Wearable pumps are great, right? It's like this new invention, but they don't empty you as well as a hospital grade pump, which I feel like new moms don't understand because we're trying to be discreet, or maybe this is our second child and we're trying to chase a toddler around and pump, and so they're good, but they are not going to empty your breast as well as a hospital grade pump. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and I think they're a great secondary pump. Maybe you're out walking the dog with your toddler, taking a minute for yourself. Or I had a mom who had a long commute every day into DC from out here in Northern Virginia. So it was certainly great to use in addition to, but not in lieu of your main pump.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up with a commute, because when I was working, I did have like a 35-minute commute between the two nursing homes I went to. So I would like hook it up, but I didn't own a wearable. And so it's just like sticking out, and I would put like a scarf over it. And I was always like, please don't pull me over. Please don't pull me over. Right. Because I was so afraid. But I was like, even if a police officer would pull me over, I know he would look at me and go, I can't, just keep going. I can't deal with this. Nope. No questions are asked. Just go.
Go.
So luckily I was never pulled over. But yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Amy. How can mamas connect with you?
Thank you, Bethany. So I'm on Instagram, Thrive Breastfeeding. My website is thrivebreastfeeding.com. I service moms in the Washington, D.C. area, including Maryland and Northern Virginia. Do some remote or virtual sessions as well. But really, my primary focus is going in homes for in-home consultations in this area.
That's amazing. That's needed so much, because I know it's so hard to get off the couch and get places. I know with our second son, when I felt like something was wrong, I remember my mom being like, you said there was a breastfeeding support group today. Get your butt in the car.
Yeah. And that's not always the easiest thing to do with different situations. So yes, I come to your home. It's a concierge level service. I'm also offering a back to work coaching session that is virtual. One-on-one, if you're planning to go back to work and are worried about stockpiling or when to pump or how to pump, that's something that I can help you with as well.
That's amazing. So with that service, is it like a one-time session, or do they get you for a few sessions?
Initially, I'm starting out with the one session, and then it also includes a week of text and email support.
Awesome. Well, that is so needed for mamas. Go hit her up. That's awesome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on your show. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so good to hear from another breastfeeding expert because, as you know, not, everyone has different personalities. Plus, I also like to have people across the country so that if you aren't close to me in the Midwest, they can come over and see you. So thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you loved this episode, it would mean so much if you would share it with another mama or post on social media and tag me. I want to personally thank you for wanting to help other mamas. You got this. I'm rooting for your breastfeeding journey.